15-second hook for YouTube. He thought he was alone in his office late at night, until he heard a soft swishing sound. When a cold-hearted billionaire turned the corner, he froze in shock. A small, barefoot homeless girl was quietly cleaning his luxury office floor. What she told him next shattered his heart and changed his life forever. The city at night was a living, breathing creature. It never slept. It only shifted moods. During the day, it was loud and ambitious. At night, it became quiet, cold, and brutally honest. On the top floor of the tallest skyscraper in the city, where glass walls touched the stars, sat a man who believed he had conquered everything. Adrian Blackwood. A billionaire. A legend. A man whose name alone could make companies collapse or rise overnight. He sat alone in his luxury office long after everyone else had gone home. The lights of the city flickered like a sea of stars below him. His desk was made of black Italian marble. The walls were decorated with framed magazine covers that praised him as a genius. But his expression was empty. Profit margins increased by 12%, he muttered to himself, staring at the glowing laptop screen. Still not enough. Adrian closed the laptop slowly and leaned back in his leather chair. Silence filled the room. That was when he heard it. A faint sound. Swish, swish. Like a broom. Adrian frowned. No one was supposed to be on this floor at night. He stood up, his expensive black suit jacket perfectly pressed even at this late hour, and walked quietly toward the sound. Swish, swish. It was coming from the conference room. He pushed the glass door open. And froze. A small girl stood inside. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old. She was thin, barefoot, and dressed in an oversized, worn-out hoodie that hung off her shoulders. In her hands was a cheap mop. She was carefully cleaning the marble floor. Her movements were slow, gentle, respectful. She didn't notice him at first. When she finally looked up and saw him, her eyes went wide with fear. I'm sorry, she whispered, dropping the mop instantly. Please don't be angry, sir. I'll leave. I didn't break anything. Her voice trembled like a leaf in a storm. Adrian stared at her, confused and irritated. Who are you? He demanded. And how did you get up here? She bit her lip and looked down at her dirty feet. My name is Lila. There was a long silence. You're trespassing, Adrian said, his voice cold. This is a private building. I know, she whispered. I'm very sorry. She started backing toward the door, clearly ready to run. Something in Adrian stopped her. Wait, he said. She froze. His eyes softened just a fraction. Why are you cleaning my office? Lila hesitated. Her fingers twisted nervously in the fabric of her hoodie. I clean offices at night. That's ridiculous, Adrian replied sharply. You're a child. She lifted her eyes slowly, and for a brief moment, he saw something no amount of money had ever bought him. Pain. I do it so I can eat, she said quietly. The words fell into the room like broken glass. Adrian scoffed. You expect me to believe that? She nodded slowly. The guards downstairs sometimes let me in when the offices are empty. I clean the floors, empty the trash, and wipe the desks. Some people leave food. Some leave coins. Her voice cracked. I don't take much. Only what they don't want. Adrian crossed his arms, still skeptical. And where are your parents? Her shoulders stiffened. Silence. Then, in the softest voice, she said, They are gone. Adrian felt a strange discomfort in his chest. Gone where? She took a shaky breath. My mama got very sick. We didn't have money for the hospital. She tried to be strong, but she couldn't be. Her eyes started to shine with tears, but she tried desperately not to cry. My papa, he went out one night to find work after that. He said he'd come back. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He never did. The air in the room felt heavier. Adrian didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to real stories like this. He was used to boardrooms, negotiations, threats, and numbers. Not heartbreak. Where do you sleep? He asked, before he could stop himself. Lila hesitated again, then pointed vaguely toward the window. Behind the old bakery. There's a little space between the wall and the trash bins. It's warm sometimes when the machines are on. Adrian looked away. For the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar. Guilt. You shouldn't be here, he said, more softly now. It's dangerous. I leave before morning, she replied. I'm very quiet. Nobody ever notices me. She picked up the mop slowly like she was about to keep working. Please, she added in a whisper. I'll finish fast and go. Adrian's heart beat harder. He watched the small girl move the mop across the polished floor of his $1,000,000 office. And suddenly, the room didn't feel luxurious anymore. It felt empty. He turned back toward his desk and opened a drawer. Inside was a small stack of cash. He walked back to her and held it out. Take this, he said. Lila's eyes widened in horror. I can't, she shook her head quickly. I didn't clean everything yet. This isn't payment, Adrian said, confusing himself with his own words. It's help. She stared at the money like it might disappear if she looked too long. Then she gently pushed his hand back. Thank you, sir, she whispered, but I don't want to be bad. Those words hit him harder than any insult he'd ever received. You're not bad, Adrian said, his voice low. She gave him a small, tired smile. I know. A long silence filled the office. Finally, Adrian said, You can finish, but don't come back after tonight. She nodded. Okay. He walked back to his office chair, but he didn't sit. He just stood there and watched her. For the first time in years, Adrian Blackwood felt powerless. And he didn't hate it. The girl's small figure moved quietly across the marble floor, and the sound of the mop became a slow, steady rhythm inside Adrian Blackwood's chest. Swish, swish, swish. He sat back down at his desk but didn't turn on his laptop. For once, the glowing screen didn't tempt him. His eyes stayed on the reflection of the glass wall, where he could see Lila's shadow moving back and forth. You're too small to be doing this kind of work, he said without looking directly at her. She didn't stop. If I don't work, I don't eat. The way she said it, simple, direct, without pity, unsettled him. You shouldn't be here at night, Adrian said. There are other places to get help. Shelters. Charities. Lila shrugged slightly. They are always full. Her answer came so quickly, it was obvious she had tried. Adrian pressed his lips into a thin line. He was used to solving problems with money, lawyers, and pressure. But this wasn't something he could crush or buy his way out of in an instant. How long have you been doing this? He asked. She paused for a moment, resting the mop against the wall. Since winter. That was months ago. She nodded. It was very cold then. Her hands, he noticed, were red and cracked, tiny hands that should have been holding crayons or toys, not industrial cleaning tools. What about school? He asked. She smiled, and it wasn't a happy smile. It was a careful one. I like school, she said. I used to go. Used to? Adrian repeated. When my mama was alive, she made me go every day. She said, Lila, you have to be very smart so you don't have to suffer like me. Her voice softened when she spoke about her mother. She braided my hair every morning, Lila went on quietly. Sometimes she sang while she did it. Adrian felt a lump form in his throat. What happened then? He asked. When she got sick, I stayed home to help her, Lila said. And when she was gone, I just didn't go back. The room felt colder, even though the temperature hadn't changed at all. Adrian stood up again and walked towards the small kitchen attached to his office. It was spotless, unused most days. He opened the refrigerator. Inside were neatly arranged containers of expensive food. Salads untouched. Fruits that had started to soften. A box of gourmet sandwiches delivered earlier that day. He stared at them for a long moment. Then he heard Lila's quiet cough behind him. He turned. Are you hungry?
She froze like a deer caught in headlights. A little, she admitted. He picked up the box of sandwiches and held it out to her.
These would have been thrown away tomorrow, he said. You'd be doing me a favor. She hesitated, then slowly stepped forward and took the box as if it were made of glass.
Thank you, she whispered.
She sat carefully on one of the leather chairs, like she was afraid she didn't belong there, and opened the box. Adrian watched as she took the smallest bite possible, savoring it, like she didn't know when she'd get the next chance to taste something warm and fresh again. You don't have to eat that slowly, he said.
I just don't want it to end, she replied honestly.
Those words stayed with him. He leaned back against the counter, arms folded.
Does anyone else do this with you?
Other kids.
She shook her head.
Sometimes there are older boys on the street. Not good ones.
Her eyes flicked down as she spoke. I try to stay away from them, she added.
Adrian clenched his jaw. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about stocks, losses, or acquisitions.
He was thinking about danger.
You can't keep sleeping outside, he said.
I don't have a choice, she replied.
Maybe you do, he said quietly. She looked up at him, confused. What do you mean?
He didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. Finish your food, he said.
Don't rush. He walked a short distance away and made a silent call. Yes, he said into the phone. I need you to stay available tonight.
Pause.
No, it's personal.
He ended the call and turned back to her.
Lila was halfway through her sandwich now, color slowly returning to her pale face. When she finished, she carefully folded the wrapper and placed it back in the box.
Can I take the rest with me? She asked shyly. For tomorrow?
Adrian nodded. You can take everything. She stood up, hugged the box to her chest, and went back to cleaning. She worked quietly for another 20 minutes. Adrian didn't tell her to stop. When she was finally done, he watched her rinse the mop in the small utility sink and place it neatly back in the corner.
She walked over to him and looked down. I'm finished, sir, she said.
I'll go now. He stepped in front of her. You don't have to go back to the street tonight, he said.
Her eyes widened.
What?
There's a guest room in this building, he replied.
For executives who work too late.
She immediately shook her head. No, I can't. Why not? He asked. I'll get you in trouble, she said.
And I don't want to be where I don't belong.
Those words cut deeper than she realized.
Adrian lowered himself so they were at the same eye level. You belong wherever you're safe, he said. She studied his face, like she was trying to decide whether he was a kind man or another trick of the world. Just one night, he added. No promises. No conditions. Silence stretched between them. Finally, she whispered, only one night. He held the door open for her as they walked out of the office and into the quiet hallway. The floor lights glowed softly. The elevator doors opened, and they stepped inside. As the doors slid closed, Lila looked up at him.
Sir? She asked.
Yes. You don't look as cold now.
He blinked.
What?
She gave a shy smile.
When I first saw you, you looked like ice. The elevator hummed quietly. Adrian looked down at his reflection in the mirrored wall.
For the first time in years, he didn't see ice.
He saw a crack forming. The guest room was quiet and warm, wrapped in soft golden light that made the harshness of the night feel far away. The bed was large, covered in clean white sheets that smelled faintly of soap and calm. To Lila, it looked like something from a dream. She stood at the doorway, gripping the box of sandwiches against her chest. You can sleep here, Adrian said gently. There's a bathroom inside. Towels in the cabinet.
She nodded slowly but didn't step in yet. What's wrong? He asked.
I've never slept in a room like this, she whispered.
I'm scared I'll make it dirty.
Adrian was silent for a moment, then said, It's already lived in. By tired people. You won't hurt it. That made her smile, just a little. She took off her oversized shoes at the door like she had seen people do in nicer homes, even though her feet were already bare. She patted inside carefully, as if the carpet might break under her. Adrian stopped at the door frame.
"I'll be nearby," he said.
"If you need anything." "Thank you," she replied softly, and for the first time that night, her voice wasn't shaking.
He closed the door gently. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall and exhaled. "What am I doing?"
He hadn't shared a space with another human being this vulnerable in years. Everything in his life was built on contracts, walls, and distance. Not warmth.
Not stories.
Not small girls with cracked hands and brave eyes.
He returned to his office but couldn't sit down.
Instead, he stood by the window, staring at the city, at the streets,
at the shadows between the buildings where children like Lila slept. Inside the guest room, Lila sat at the edge of the bed. She touched the blanket. Soft.
She lay down slowly, fully dressed, hugging the box of sandwiches like it was a pillow. For a long time, she didn't sleep.
She just stared at the ceiling. It was too quiet. On the street, there were always noises. Cars. Shouting. Wind.
Here, the silence felt heavy. She whispered to herself, "Just one night." Her eyes closed. And for the first time in months, she slept without fear. Morning arrived like a quiet promise. Soft sunlight slipped through the curtains and landed gently on her face. Lila blinked her eyes open slowly, unsure of where she was for one confusing second. Then she remembered. The office.
The man. The warm bed. She sat up quickly. Nothing had disappeared. Nothing had changed. She was still safe.
She walked into the small bathroom and stared at her reflection in the mirror.
Her hair was tangled. Her cheeks were pale. Her eyes looked older than they should. She turned on the faucet and washed her hands. The water was warm.
She held her fingers under the stream for a long time, just because she could. A soft knock came at the door.
"Yes," she called quietly. "Breakfast," Adrian said. She opened the door slowly.
In the hallway, Adrian stood holding a small tray. On it were eggs, toast, and a small glass of orange juice. "I'm not very good at cooking," he said awkwardly. "But it's warm."
Her eyes widened.
"Is this for me?"
"Yes," he nodded. She took the tray like she was holding something sacred. They sat at the small dining table in the corner of the guest suite.
She took a bite of the toast, and her eyes filled with tears. "It tastes like my mama's," she said. Adrian felt his chest tighten.
"What was your mother's name?" he asked gently. "Maribel," she replied.
She said her name meant beautiful sea.
He nodded slowly, memorizing it. "Do you miss her?" he asked.
"I miss her every day," Lila said, her voice cracking. Adrian didn't know what to say.
So he said nothing. He just stayed.
After breakfast, Adrian called someone again. "Yes," he said into the phone.
"I need a background check done." Quietly. Pause. "Yes."
Immediately. He ended the call and looked at Lila, who was carefully folding her napkin. "You don't have to clean that," he said.
"I like to help," she replied. They walked back toward his office together. The building was waking up. Distant voices echoed from lower floors.
Janitors passed by, pushing large carts, and did double takes when they saw Lila walking beside him.
He felt their stares.
And, for the first time in his life,
he didn't care. Inside his office, Lila stopped in the doorway. "This is very big," she said quietly.
Adrian sat down slowly. "It feels different now."
She tilted her head.
"Why?"
"Because it was empty before," he answered.
"Now it's not."
She smiled. His phone buzzed.
He glanced at the screen and then stepped aside to take the call. "Yes," he whispered.
Pause.
Then he froze. "What do you mean, there's no record?"
Silence. He looked at Lila through the glass wall while he listened. "You're certain?" he asked. Another pause. His face tightened.
"Keep digging," he said, and ended the call.
He stood still. No record. No birth record. No school record. No hospital record. It was like she didn't exist. He walked back to her slowly.
Lila, he said carefully, do you remember your last name?
She frowned.
I don't think I have one.
His heart dropped.
Do you remember where you were born?
She shook her head. Mama never told me.
A strange, protective fear wrapped around his thoughts.
She wasn't just poor. She was invisible. Stay here, he said gently.
I need to make sure you're safe.
She nodded.
And for the first time, Lila felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. The building felt different after that phone call, like even the polished walls were suddenly carrying a secret. Adrian sat quietly for a long time behind his desk, staring at the city, while Lila stood near the window, tracing small shapes on the glass with her fingertip.
No records.
No proof.
No history. A child without existence.
Lila, Adrian said softly, breaking the silence, do you remember anything about where you lived before the streets?
She thought hard.
Her small eyebrows drew together. I remember a blue door, she said slowly, and a big crack in the wall that looked like a lightning bolt.
He leaned forward.
Do you remember the street?
She shook her head. No.
Just that Mama used to hold my hand very tight when we crossed the road.
He felt that strange tightness in his chest again. He picked up the phone.
Cancel my morning meetings, he told his assistant firmly. All of them. There was a shocked pause on the other end, but he didn't wait for argument.
He ended the call.
Lila's eyes widened. Am I in trouble?
He looked at her. No.
You're my priority today. She blinked as if she didn't understand the meaning of those words. They left the building together. The city in the morning was loud, crowded, and unaware. People moved like rivers, rushing to work, to coffee shops, to lives that felt much more important than a small barefoot girl walking beside a billionaire. Adrian removed his suit jacket and gently placed it over her shoulders.
Why are you giving me your coat? She asked.
Because you're cold, he replied simply.
Down the street, Lila pointed. That way, she said.
The bakery.
He followed her direction.
The old bakery was exactly how she had described it.
Cracked walls. Rusted metal. A broken sign hanging by a single bolt. Behind it was the narrow space. The place she called home.
Adrian looked at the cardboard she used as a bed.
The thin blanket.
The empty food wrappers.
His hands slowly curled into fists.
You slept here? He asked, even though he already knew the answer.
She nodded.
It's dry when it doesn't rain. He crouched down and carefully lifted the blanket. It weighed almost nothing. No child should ever have to survive like this, he whispered.
She stepped closer to him. I wasn't always sad, she said softly. He looked up at her.
My mama used to make up stories, she continued. She said I was a princess who got lost from her castle, and one day someone would come and help me find my way back.
Adrian's eyes stung.
Maybe she was right, he said. They walked to a nearby hospital. The building smelled like medicine and quiet fear. At the front desk, Adrian gave his name. The nurse's eyes widened, but she hid her reaction quickly. I need a medical checkup for her, he said, placing a hand gently on Lila's shoulder.
The nurse nodded.
While Lila was taken inside, Adrian sat in the waiting area.
He didn't check emails. He didn't check reports.
He didn't care about his phone. He just stared at the white walls and thought about blue doors and lightning cracks.
A doctor approached him after some time.
She is severely undernourished, the doctor said.
Dehydrated. But she's strong.
Adrian let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Will she be okay?
With care, the doctor replied. Yes. That was all he needed to hear.
After the hospital, they went to a clothing store. The manager nearly panicked when Adrian walked in. Choose what you like, he told Lila gently. She touched the soft fabrics carefully. She chose simple things. Nothing flashy. A light dress. Warm socks. Soft shoes. You can get more,
he said. This is enough, she replied, hugging the clothes. He admired her for that. Back in the car, she held the bag tightly. Why are you helping me? She finally asked. He thought about that. Long and hard. Because I forgot what it felt like to be human, he said quietly. She leaned her head against the window. You're not cold anymore. He almost laughed. Almost. That evening, they returned to the office. The sunlight was fading again. He prepared another room. Ordered fresh food. Called someone new. Yes, he said into the phone.
I want to begin adoption procedures.
There was a stunned silence. I'm serious, he added. He hung up and looked at Lila.
She sat on the couch, swinging her legs slightly, eating a piece of apple. Do you know what adoption means? He asked.
She shook her head slowly. It means, I get to stay, she asked. He walked toward her and knelt down in front of her.
If you want to, he said. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't want to go back to the cold, she whispered.
You won't, he promised. And for the first time in his life.
Adrian Blackwood made a promise he intended to keep. The world didn't change overnight.
But Adrian Blackwood did.
The office that once echoed only with numbers and sharp voices now had soft sounds, the gentle tapping of small footsteps, the quiet hum of cartoons playing in the guest room, and the shy laughter of a little girl who was slowly learning what safety felt like.
The legal process took weeks. Lawyers argued. Papers piled up. Investigators asked questions.
Meetings were held in cold rooms with long tables. Through all of it, Adrian never wavered. Every morning, Lila woke up in the guest room that was slowly turning into her room. The white walls gained soft colors.
There were books on the shelves.
A small stuffed bear appeared on the bed one day. He said it was included with the room, but she knew better.
One evening, she stood in the doorway of his office while he worked. Sir, she asked softly. He looked up.
You can call me Adrian.
She tested the name quietly.
Adrian.
It felt strange. Warm. He closed his laptop.
I want to show you something, he said. They drove out of the city that night, far from glass buildings and loud streets, to a quiet neighborhood lined with trees and soft streetlights.
The house wasn't a mansion. It wasn't loud. It was simple. Warm. Real. He unlocked the door and turned on the lights.
This is for you?
Lila asked.
For us, he corrected.
She walked slowly through the rooms. The soft couch. The small kitchen.
The bedroom with pale yellow walls and a little desk by the window.
This one is yours, he said. She stepped inside and slowly spun in a circle.
It smells like new beginnings, she whispered. Adrian felt something break inside him.
And something heal.
On the day the adoption papers were finalized, the lawyer smiled at him.
Congratulations, Mr. Blackwood, she said.
You're officially a father.
The word hit him harder than any business loss. Father.
He walked out of the building and knelt in front of Lila, who was waiting in the hallway, gripping her worn little backpack.
It's official, he said.
You're home.
She didn't speak. She ran forward and wrapped her arms tightly around his neck. I won't clean floors anymore, she whispered. He gently held her.
You won't ever have to.
Years passed. The cold office turned into a warm home. Lila went to school. Then she went to the best schools. She read books late at night. She learned music. She learned art.
But she never forgot. One late evening, many years later, Adrian sat in that same glass office.
But it wasn't cold anymore. Behind him, a diploma hung on the wall. Footsteps approached. A young woman stepped inside. Her hair neatly tied back. Her eyes bright. Her smile gentle. Dad, she said softly. He turned. Lila. Grown. Strong. Alive.
I brought you dinner, she said, placing a small box on his desk.
He laughed quietly. You don't have to. I want to, she replied.
You taught me that being kind isn't weakness.
He stood and hugged her. Tight. Real. Outside, the city lights shone. But inside the glass walls, something more powerful existed. Love.
Years later, when Adrian passed away peacefully in his sleep, he left everything behind.
Not to companies.
Not to strangers. But in a final letter, Lila stood in that same office and read his words aloud. You didn't just change my life.
You gave me one.
And in return, you gave me my heart back.
She placed the letter down gently.
Outside, children walked the streets.
But one less slept in the cold.
Because one cold-hearted billionaire chose, one night, to listen.
And in that listening, he found his soul.
The end. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes, it only takes one small act of kindness to change an entire life. Remember, even a cold heart can learn to love when it chooses compassion. Share this story with someone who needs hope today, and I'll see you in the next powerful story. Red Heart Hash.